So Brandon, we have seen so many movies depicting the life of Jesus over the years. Some good, some not so good.
It's true.
Why do you think this particular program has caught and become sort of a phenomenon of sorts?
I've thought about this a lot, Chris, and I think, the story of Jesus is among the most consequential in human history, right?
For sure.
So a lot of people have treated this story. But it's hard to get away from how big and important the story is, just the scale and scope of it. And the reason that this has taken hold of the audience's imagination, I think, is because it's not just the big story; it's the little stuff too. It's playful, it's real and authentic and human. It's intimate, right? It's dealing with not just Jesus's life, but the people around him.
Sure.
And they're very, very real struggles that, as it turns out, aren't all that different 2,000 years ago to today. Relationship problems or family problems, those things are the same. And to tell a beautiful story like that, beautiful, human, intimate stories like that, and to tell them beautifully, I think is not something that had typically been associated with Jesus stories before.
Everybody has a story. If you don't mind, could you share your chosen story and how you came to be on the program?
Oh, do you mean like how I got the part or something?
Yeah,
like
how
that?
it all came together for you to be on the show.
Oh man, it was, I think, among my favorite auditions ever. Maybe my favorite, because that's where I first met Dallas and really got to work with him, who's an incredible creator and an amazing collaborator. So I was living in Dallas at the time, Dallas, Texas.
Dallas and about to work for Dallas.
Exactly, yeah. And I think there was already someone in mind to play Quintus from LA. And the local casting director said that you should see this guy, me. And I showed up to this audition. And I had the sides and I'd sort of prepared this audition. And he came up to me right before we were about to start the audition, and he said, I kind of don't want this guy to be like a normal, like grape-eating, debauched Roman. I really just want to do something else, which already is amazing to be let into a creator's process, right? So From that very, very first interaction, I thought, someone wants to hear what I have to say about this, which is amazing. And I said, well, what if he's really good at his job? What if he likes his job? What if he's not that lazy grape-eating guy? What if he's an administrator, Yeah. And Dallas said, okay, let's do that. And one of the fun things about Dallas is instead of saying action, he says, here we play, right?
Does he really?
Yeah.
Here we play.
Here we play.
Okay.
Instead of like, here we go, right? And I think that's amazing. It fosters a sense of curiosity and creativity. Yeah. So he did that in the audition. I thought, oh, that's just amazing. So over the course of that audition, we sort of worked together to add on to this sort of skeleton that he and the writers had put together for Quintus. And after that audition, I thought, well, maybe I'll get the part, maybe I won't. But I had a really good day working with a really, really talented creator. And of course, I did get the part.
And that means a lot to an actor,
It does.
Right?
It does. It means that I got to do what I love that day, which sometimes you have to wait to do what you love.
Sure.
And this time I didn't. I just got to show up and work with this really cool guy. And that didn't stop. On set, he's the same way with everyone, that you really are collaborating and making something together, which is a real gift.
Yeah. Well, your role is of a fictional character as Quintus on the show. And is that difficult for you as an actor, to play a fictional character when you're surrounded by a lot of characters who were real life people who actually walked on the face of the planet, but yet you're fictional? Does that create a sense of challenges for you sometimes as an actor, or does it make it easier?
I don't know. I think I go back and forth on this. That's a really good question. And at first, I thought it might be a little bit more challenging because the rest of my castmates can sort of look at scholarship or history and they can get clues as to who this person was. And I thought, well, I don't really have that, so maybe it'll be more difficult. But creating something from scratch can be challenging but I think it's ultimately rewarding. And it kind of causes you to look deeper into the script that you have in front of you instead of auxiliary materials that you would research, right?
Yeah.
So I have kind of less clues to operate and I have to look harder into them. Like say, for example, the name Quintus would be the name that someone would give their fifth son.
Right. Okay, I did not know that.
That sort of stuff. So you look really closely at some details like that. And a fifth son would not, say, inherit a lot. A fifth son would not get...
No, as we have just seen with King Charles, Prince William.
That's right.
Prince
That's
Harry
right.
was left with 18th in line or whatever now. So, yeah.
So I can take that tiny little scrap of knowledge and say, oh, then Quintus had to work to get where he is. He's in a position of power now, and it was not handed to him. He willed his way into this position. Maybe that was through treachery, or maybe it was just through competence and hard work. And I sort of got to make those kinds of decisions based on one tiny little scrap of information, which ended up being enormously rewarding.
So Quintus is not exactly a nice guy.
No.
I mean, he's a villain
Yes.
of sorts. As a Roman guard, he can be downright cruel, and we've seen that in the first 3 seasons. So do you prefer playing the bad guy, or would you rather be playing the good guy? I get the sense maybe you're a bad guy kind of guy.
I love playing bad guys.
I thought so.
Yeah. I think sometimes bad guys you have to reach a little bit further outside of yourself. Sometimes when you're playing like a hero or someone in love or someone struggling with life, you can sort of look into your own experience, right? And that there's artistry in that, and there's feeling and emotion and all of that. But I really enjoy going outside of myself, like trying to empathize with someone that I don't agree with or that I would never model my behavior on. I think that's an important exercise as an actor and also as a human being to sort of understand, your fellow man. For example, bad guys, this is something that a lot of people say, but it's true. No one wakes up every day thinking, I'm going to be a bad guy today. They think that they're doing the right thing. They think they're doing work to bring people together, right? And Quintus is no exception. That's what he thinks when he wakes up every day. I'm bringing order to people's lives. I'm securing the empire. He's doing the right thing in his mind. And having to adjust my thinking to meet that is interesting to me.
I ask actors this question a lot, but your character, do you ever find that your character of Quintus ever bleeds over into Brandon's everyday life? Does that ever happen? I hope not. But I mean, sometimes you can't help but because you're in the mindset, I'm playing this part, and then you're not playing the part, but then you're still kind of stuck over here in that mindset. Does that ever happen?
Sometimes, but it's really, so here's an interesting thing. A lot of times people will keep the motor running between takes. So if you're working with a scene partner and okay, cut, you'll sort of stay in that moment. You'll preserve that moment while they're adjusting lights, and you can go off by yourself, or maybe you continue to work with your partner, whatever, but you keep the engine running. And with Quintus, I do not do that.
Okay.
As soon as they call cut, I'm trying to get out of that space. Like I make jokes with people, I engage with small talk. But so I'm getting out of that mind space. I'm getting out of leaving the engine running, so to speak. But there are things that trying to use humor and like my mannerisms. Sometimes I keep the Quintus laugh between takes,
Okay.
Like it's little things like that stick around. So those lines get blurred, but like what is essentially Quintus, I try and set aside.
We hear these stories about like Daniel Day-Lewis, who just goes there and becomes that person for 3 months while they're filming. And I would hope that's not the case for you playing Quintus.
Oh, yeah. I think I would be insufferable to work with if I was Quintus all day, every day.
And people would be like, okay, Brandon over there. So anyway, why is right now the right time for this program? I mean, it's just had huge success, and it looks like it's destined to reach even higher heights. And it seems to be speaking to a generation of people. I mean, why is right now the time for this show?
There's a really plain answer, which is supply and demand. Right? There's just not enough of this. There's a media explosion, and for whatever reason, there hasn't been this kind of media to serve this audience. So that's a really dry answer. I think the real answer is that with the sort of explosion of media, and I mean like streaming platforms, podcasts, all of this stuff, right? And anyone can make something now. Anyone can record an album, and anyone can grab a camera and go start shooting stuff. There was the kind of promise of like a democratized media, where all kinds of stories can be told and all kinds of people are represented. Right. And the Chosen is part of that, right? There are billions of faithful all over the world. And this sort of representation hasn't really taken to media. It certainly didn't in mainstream media, but now with the democratization of media, it doesn't have to be mainstream to have broad and global reach. So I think those two things together make this the exact right time.
Right. I mean, because I think, would this show have worked the way it has 10 years ago?
I don't think so.
I think the answer is no.
No, I don't think so.
But now, due to the things that you've just mentioned, all these different platforms and social media, it just seems like everything's coming into focus for the show at just the right time.
I think so too, yeah.
Just yesterday, we heard that Lionsgate was picking up as the worldwide distributor for the show. And that is, to me, that's huge, knowing the industry a little bit.
It's huge.
Which brings me to the question, does this show have the ability, and I think we've seen it already, but does it have the ability to reach beyond the Christian audience to have wide mainstream appeal? Your thoughts on that?
I think so, and I'm not alone in that thinking.
Obviously, Lionsgate
thinks so
feels
too.
that way.
Yeah. I do. I think so. I mean, regardless of your beliefs, like we were talking about earlier, the story of Jesus is among the most consequential in human history. So you don't have to be part of the faithful to appreciate that, And it is. The production value is incredible. The cast is amazing. The crew and the director are all consummate professionals, and that makes for watchable TV.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, for example, my brother called me up one night 2 or 3 months ago. He goes, "Hey, just want to let you know I've been watching The Chosen on some streaming platform." And I was kind of like, what? Because my brother, great guy, but I don't envision him being a viewer of The Chosen. But yet he's like, "Yeah, I saw it on streaming when I started watching it. Great show. And I know you've done some stories on it." And I'm like, wow, this is reaching critical mass here. So,
yeah, that's wonderful.
Yeah, great. So let's talk about these pipes of yours. You, as we've been hearing already in this interview, you've got an incredible voice. And it seems tailor-made for radio and or television. Do you see your voice being an enhanced quality that you bring to your character of Quintus?
Yeah. Well, everyone plays to their strengths, right? And this is a tool that I like.
I mean, because you have that voice. You're tuned to Stereo 93.5.
I don't know what you're talking about, Chris.
Yeah, sure. As we speak, as we record this, you are now in production for season 4.
That's right.
And I'm sure you can't give me much, but what can viewers expect from this upcoming season? What could you share about that, if you could?
So I can't share much.
I know
obviously.
You can't, but I'm trying to dig.
But this season, I've talked a lot with the cast about this. This season comes hard and fast, and it doesn't stop. It comes at you all guns blazing, right? And it doesn't let up for the entirety of the season. A lot of the previous seasons were about journeys, right? Spiritual journeys, or even like physical journeys, right? Walking from place to place. And Jesus and his followers have arrived somewhere, and things are happening. So buckle up is what I would say for season 4.
Fasten your seatbelts, get ready for the ride.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. We were talking before we started recording today about your production facility in Texas, and I'm going to attempt to say the name. I got the opportunity and the privilege to spend a couple days there last summer. Camp Hubble.
There you go.
Camp Hubble. It's an amazing production facility. As an actor, that must be a tremendous benefit to you and your castmates of having this wonderful place to film.
Yes.
Talk about that a little
It's incredible. So when The Chosen started, it was crowdfunded, and we weren't exactly a ragtag group of filmmakers, right? These were still professionals, and it was still a sizable production. But we were shooting in fields, and we were shooting on sort of rented sound stages, some makeshift sound stages. And there's value in that, but there are challenges to that too. There's noise issues, and so it's called a sound stage for your viewers who may not be into like industry jargon or whatever. It's an insulated room that is protected from noise from the outside world. It's climate controlled, all of that stuff. Now, we were not shooting on those sound stages when we first started. What that means is you just have to stop shooting sometimes because there'll be a noise or the AC kicks on, or like there's a construction site across the street and the jackhammers have just started. So there are all kinds of issues like that you have to deal with when you're sort of shooting out in the wild, right? But when you're on a sound stage, you don't have to deal with any of that. And it's always the perfect temperature, and we can control the haze, which is like they have to pump fog into the sets sometimes to make the light look a certain way. We can control the lights even, because they have all these incredible light setups they can sort of flip on and off now. Whereas when we didn't have the soundstage, we had to stop to change the lights. So all of this stuff, what all that means, Chris, is that when we're on the soundstage, we can just go.
Right.
I can just act.
Plug and play.
Yep. I can just begin the creative process and go all day long. Right. And that it's not just the actors. I mean, the crew gets to do that too. They get to just go. So it makes for like unfettered creativity. It makes for a more productive workday. It's incredible that we have these kinds of facilities to tell our story.
Well, yeah, just to set the scene for people, there is an entire village, Middle Eastern village, that when you walk through it, you actually think you are in the Middle East somewhere.
That's right.
Roll back the clock 2,000 years. I mean, you really feel that way. And then there's what I'll characterize as a sports bubble. You could play football games in this place.
Oh yeah.
Big, maybe you guys do when you're not filming. But a big, huge space that's just top shelf, top of the line. It's just an amazing, amazing place. And it's all built, and I'll say, to me, being a person from the East Coast, it's like being this wonderful production facility set down in the middle of a prairie.
Yep.
I mean, that's grasslands all around you. That's what it feels
exactly
like.
Right.
So, Brandon, final question for you. And that is, after people have watched an episode, or hopefully the entire series of The Chosen, what would you like to see audiences get out of the experience? I mean, what's your greatest hope for this program?
My greatest hope for The Chosen is this. It's kind of a central tenet for me as a creator, which is all I want, my highest aspiration is to bring people together. And that's my hope for this show, whether it's one episode or the entire series, is that it brings people together. And so far, it has done that in ways that I could never have imagined. And I feel humbled and honored to be a part of it.
That's fantastic. Thank you so much for the time.
Thank you, Chris. I really appreciate it. Yeah. Thanks for having me.